Questions, where we answer the questions on your radar.
Well, welcome into Weathered Questions, the podcast where we answer the meteorology questions on your radar. My name is Jan Kaj. I am joined by my co-host, Kai O'Mara, and we are kicking off year 2 of the podcast. So thank you so much for being here. Kind of going to reset a little bit, maybe remind everybody why we're here and what it is that we're doing. If you've been along with us for the last year, thank you so much for listening. If you're just now finding us or have most recently found us and been sampling a few episodes, we're glad you found this one as well. We kind of started this just as a way to help share what we love. We're both meteorologists, former broadcast meteorologists, and a lot of people come to us with weathered questions that we hear time and time again, and they're about the weather. And people just want to know what's going on around them. And we love talking about it. And we figured, why keep that amongst our close family and friends? Let's tell the world. So that's what we're here for. And I think it's been a really fun year, hasn't it, Kai?
I'd say so. Yeah, we had several dozen episodes. We have had folks reach out from various states. And we're even seeing some folks internationally that are listening too, which is awesome. I just got a question yesterday. And it was, we had some asperitas clouds again over here.
I got a question about those too.
So it's clearly working. People are reaching out with their questions, but they'd probably reach out either way, even if we didn't have this podcast going on. But what it does is it gives you an outlet so that we can share with everybody what's happening. So year 2 is already upon us here. And this was, a good 3 months of prep to try and figure out what in the world we're doing. We've never done anything like this before. Turns out, now that we're 30 some episodes into it, a little easier now. We can plug in and get the thing going and then be done. But boy, leading up to it, it's a lot of legwork. Stuff like this, isn't easy. But speaking of not being easy, for any of the parents listening, let's just be honest. School is very important for our children.
Yeah.
We also use it as a daycare. Don't lie. We also use it as a daycare. It's also a handy second thing called daycare, which means that us working parents can be done and focus on our jobs while the kids are at school. So when the kids are out for summer, it becomes difficult. So speaking of summer weather, because we are kicking off June this week, back on Monday was June 1st, which is meteorological summer, not astronomical summer, but meteorological summer. So the first question up today, Jan, why do some parts of the country get so hot and humid in the summer while others just get hot? Why the difference?
Yeah, so we have different parts. This is specifically talking about the U.S., right? Obviously, a lot of other countries will have similar or differences and stuff, but the U.S. is very unique in how its geography and the surrounding water and land and everything kind of influences its weather. But what we tend to get here is, especially in the middle of the country, as well as down in the south, we have a lot of moisture. That comes in from the Gulf of Mexico. Very, very, common thing that we've got wind kind of blowing off the Gulf and bringing in warm, moist air across the country. And that influences our weather a lot. That's why we get severe storms and things like that. But it also just increases the moisture in the air. So the air has more water in it, makes it feel hot and sticky. And so we get those more humid days. Whereas maybe somewhere in the desert Southwest, where you've heard of a dry heat, right? You have a more arid climate, more kind of desert-esque, and you're not being influenced by the Gulf because there's a giant tall shield of rocks in the way called the Rocky Mountains. With that, things can't get past. So that's one of the things. Another thing that we have heard, I feel like becoming more and more popular, at least people have heard a lot more about it, corn sweat. evapotranspiration in the later summer, especially once the crops are mature. In the central parts of the country where you have row crops like corn and soybeans, once those are mature, you have them literally pumping moisture into the air through their leaves. And again, that can make it even more sticky feeling. And so that really does play a big role. You can get your dew point readings into the 70s and 80s very easily near cornfields. And when you have a lot of cities that are surrounded by cornfields, that tends to impact the people too. So those are kind of the two biggest reasons that I would say. Do you have any other thoughts that you want to add to that one, Kai?
Not so much necessarily, but I will tell you a story about going to Las Vegas. And
please.
It is true that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, except for the weather, because we're going to talk about the weather.
Okay. All
I
right.
will tell you growing up that, I didn't experience a ton of 100-degree weather here in Iowa. And we're going to actually explain why that's the case in a second. But when I would see 105, 110 on the maps down in the desert Southwest, I would think, man, that's got to be like totally unbearable. So I've been to Las Vegas several times. Once was actually academic related, going down to Nevada. I was down in Phoenix, Arizona for that. But then down in Nevada, there are conferences and things to go to. And so it was one of those upper 90s, near 100-degree days. And not kidding you, I walked outside. I'm not going to say it felt cool in the shade, but I bet the humidity was 8%, 5%.
Yeah.
And if there was any sweat on you, it was wicked away immediately. And yes, the sun was warm, but it felt like an Iowa 90-degree afternoon, quite frankly, maybe even more comfortable. It was very bizarre for me, being a humidity creature, to go into the desert. And I'll tell you, the mornings, even the warm mornings, were really pleasant. They were not bad at all. So yes, it's always interesting to see how people react to different things, but out there in Vegas, that heat was not awful, at least for me. But a lot of this has to do with what you just said. So if we go back to the very basics of who gets what, you've got the moisture source and you have the land use and you got what the land cover is. Well, Vegas is a bunch of rocks. Rocks get hot.
Yeah.
And they're pretty dry. There's no real moisture out there. So I think that's probably a good way to think of things. But yeah, anywhere east of the Rockies can get humid. Even southern Canada can get quite humid too.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing, I think, more and more of that kind of, pushing up into Minnesota and Canada and getting those hotter days maybe that you wouldn't normally have expected. And we're starting to see a little bit maybe of a shift in some of our warm weather. And that kind of brings us into our next question here, which is, can you explain how heat waves work and what does that mean in the long run? So,
yeah.
What do you have for that one?
So we've already had a couple heat waves in the United States so far. First off, I don't know if there's a textbook heat wave definition. My general thought is more than 5 days. More than 5 days of, excessively warm weather for that region is probably going to qualify.
And I feel like maybe it also depends on just how hot, right? If you get like 3 days of excessively hot, maybe you count that.
Yeah, it might be 3, it might be 5, maybe 3 of excessively hot and then maybe 5 of just general hot. But I will tell you that a lot of the research points towards the human impact as not being on an acute heat wave like a day. It happens over like a 4 or 5 day span where it's just cumulative heat stress that also is the same on animals as well. But when you get into the center of the country, things get a little bizarre. And it's not because the atmosphere is different here. It's because the ground is different here. And if you want to really go down a rabbit hole, just Google climate change and have AI bring up a bunch of graphs for you. You know what you're going to see? You're going to see a bunch of graphs that start in the lower left corner, and then end up in the upper right corner. Everything's increasing, no matter what it is. Everything's increasing. Sometimes it increases exponentially. Sometimes it's a linear increase. Except for hot summer days in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Those are flat or decreasing. And at first glance, you go, All right, the Midwest is weird. Why is this happening? Well, think about our world 100 years ago and any sort of photographs you've seen from back then. And a lot of bare ground, a lot of native grass. We had droughts just like we have today. We have floods just like we have today. But without all those row crops, as you mentioned earlier, there's a whole lot less water in the air. And if the sun has to heat the ground and the ground heats the air above it, and there's not a whole lot of moisture to play with, what do you turn into? You turn to Las Vegas. Super hot weather all the time. Now, they also didn't have AC back then.
Yep.
Not an inkling of that. And so that's where, the complaining is on, double time. If you go back to those days where it's like it was 109, no AC, but you know what? They made it. So that bears in mind, all right, how can it be hotter then than it is now? Well, if our humidity is increasing, and let's just assume that the sun's output is the same, right? I know that we've got solar spots, sunspots. I know we've got various cyclic things, but just for the sake of the conversation, the sunlight's the same all the time. That's equivalent to having a burner on your stove at the exact same intensity. A pot on the left has 2 cups of water in it. A pot on the right has 3 cups of water in it. Who boils first? The 2-cup one does. Does the 3-cup get warm? It sure does, but it doesn't boil in that 3 or 4 minutes that you're trying to do. So what that means is the more moisture there is in the air, the more uncomfortable it feels to us. But on the thermometer, you're not seeing results. A lot of times you'll see summer afternoons cap at 94, 95 degrees. The problem is the dew points have been hitting the 80s more and more and more and more. So that corn crop and the bean crops are doing their thing. And I will tell you a fun stat for your next trivia night. An acre of corn can give off several thousand gallons of water in a week. I mean, that's a lot of water. Eventually, if you want to put it into, swimming pool size stuff, you can do that. And you can actually, if you have an airport in your area, just because I know we've got a lot of Iowa-centric listeners, the Vinton area, the Vinton Airport is outside of town, right by a field. You can see the dew point spike late in the afternoon, and then even into the early evening, the dew point holds on because the plants aren't quite done transpiring until about 7, 8 o'clock. And then it starts shutting down. And 100 years ago, that wasn't there. That's the key. So they're still miserable, but in their own way. Definitely in their own way here.
Yep. And something else, to kind of relate that pot on the stove analogy a little bit to some things we've talked about on the show before. The more moisture that is in the air, the harder it is going to be to change that temperature quickly, right?
Yep,
that's
absolutely.
the analogy that we just went through with the stove, just to put it into other terms. But we see this, and you probably know this intuitively, even if you don't realize it, that, for example, in Florida, it sure gets darn hot in Florida. And the temperature can get into the 80s and 90s, but it usually doesn't go past that. Whereas in the middle of the country, where, again, in general, because we are more landlocked, it's going to be a little drier. Again, we talked about the whole humidity thing, right? But compared to a state like Florida surrounded by ocean water, a drier climate is going to be a little easier to get those temperatures to spike on occasion over that 100-degree mark or into those higher numbers, just because, again, there's maybe a little less moisture for it to be dealing with. Now, again, that is a very big generalization. We already went through the whole corn crops and humidity and climate and everything else. Like, there are a lot of factors, and that's what makes weather so tricky, is that there's always so many different factors to consider. But it is going to be that the less moisture, the easier it's going to be to change that temperature quickly.
Well, and you've got a washer and dryer at home, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Do you?
I bet a lot of our listeners do. Yes, I do. Just think about doing your laundry in early August. Medium heat has always worked, except when the dew point's 75, and you might have to take it for another spin. So think about it. What changed? Your heat didn't change. Your quantity of laundry didn't change. Your atmosphere changed. Your humidity changed. And if there's more water in the atmosphere already, the same amount of heat cannot do the job as effectively. So that's another real life example, which I've had to take the clothes for a couple spins. But I also kind of push it because I try and get a lot done at once. So that's probably partially my fault. But
well, that's fair.
yeah. But, these heat waves, we had a real big early season one in the desert Southwest. We'll just have to see how this summer goes. It's kind of a mixed situation because from all that we can tell, it looks like a pretty high level El Nino is developing. Could give us a really mixed summer here. I mean, we don't have a lot of cases to look back at with a Nino that strong. So it's almost tough to tell aside from maybe a bit of a drier start this June. After that, we'll just have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, we will. And we'll be right here with you if you have any questions on how it's playing out and maybe what's influencing it. Well, with all of that heat and humidity, today's trivia question goes right along with that. So the question for today is, which of these is usually the best indicator of how muggy it feels outside? Is it A, temperature, B, relative humidity, C, dew point, or D, wind speed? Again, we're looking for what's usually the best indicator of how muggy it feels outside. We'll give you a minute and we'll be right back. Okay, I lied. We only gave you a few seconds. We didn't give you a full minute, but hopefully you had enough time to think about.
We knew what you meant.
Yeah.
You probably got it narrowed down to 2, I'm going to guess.
I would think so. We've talked about, several of these already today. But again, which of these is usually the best indicator for how muggy it feels outside? Temperature, relative humidity, dew point, or wind speed? Chances are you narrowed it down to relative humidity and dew point. Probably knocked temperature out, probably knocked wind speed out. And temperature obviously does play into it a little bit. But in terms of how muggy it feels, the winner is going to be dew point.
You got it. Exactly. It's one of the most misunderstood weather terms out there.
I would agree.
Because when you and I grew up, Jan, it was relative humidity that was plastered on the TV all the time.
And even still, I guess
There's
now we've been out of news for a while, but we would get people who would be like, why are you not showing the relative humidity? I need the relative humidity. And there are a few applications where it is very, very important. But in general, most people just want to know how sticky it's going to feel outside, and dew point is far superior.
Yeah, it definitely is. Dew point, actually, of all the things you listed, is the only direct measurement of moisture in the air. Relative humidity has a key term in there called relative. So it changes every single day. And what it is it's a number relative to how saturated it is, which means it's directly dependent upon temperature. So in the worst Arctic outbreak we've ever had, the humidity was probably 100%. And you might be saying, there's no way. Well, yeah, there is, because if it's that cold, it can't hold anything. And so even if there's a gram of water in there, it's probably going to just squeeze itself right out. Whereas in the summertime, a lot of our real hot days actually are only 50% humidity, maybe 60%. And I have now, when you leave operational daily meteorology like we have, Jan, there were some things that bothered me in that industry, and I would correct people on. Now I don't care. So when I see somebody at a bar it was 95 with 95% humidity, I'll say to myself, I'm just going to let it go.
Yep.
I know what he means.
Yep.
I'll say hello, stay cool, catch you later. I'm not going to try and do a meteorological debate in a bar on a Saturday night at 8:30. That doesn't sound like a good idea. So
well, and here's the thing. So many people say those things and probably don't realize they're talking to a meteorologist half the time.
Right. And that's okay.
And I just want to say, as a meteorologist, weather is not small talk for me. I am happy to debate anytime. And I know you are too.
I know.
But I also find myself more and more and more having to pick my battles and just let it go. But
when you're around kids long enough,
hard.
you learn that quickly. Just pick your battles.
Oh, yeah.
But I will give you 2 applications of how relative humidity, actually maybe 3 applications of how relative humidity is very, very useful. Number 1, painting.
Yes.
If you are
that is the first one I thought of too.
And it's the warm, actually ideal weather for painting is like 40s and 50s, 60s with really low dew points. That paint will dry very quickly for you. Another one in the winter time, if you're trying to make candy, try and pick a day that's got really dry air around. Colder days, drier days would probably work out pretty well.
There's a reason candy is like a Christmas thing and not a 4th of July thing.
Right. You try and make caramels.
The weather's better.
Make caramels when the dew point's 82. I'll see you in a month because they won't dry.
Not. Yeah.
They will not dry. Also, by the way, this has nothing to do with humidity, but I just got this question this weekend. The car was really huffing and puffing with the air conditioner. Parked it, and all of a sudden, what do you see? You see this puddle of water draining away from the car. Oh my God, I just blew a pan. No, I didn't. All it is condensate. That's all it is. It's just condensation from your AC unit. So don't panic. If you see a little bit of water coming out from underneath your car and you just ran the AC, that's probably what happened, especially when it gets humid.
You're full of bonus facts today, Kai.
I'm trying. I'm trying. Yeah.
Did you have a third one that you wanted to throw in there?
I did, but I forgot.
Okay, sounds good.
If it comes to me, I'll bring it in, but I forgot.
I just didn't want to cut you off and move on to the next question. All right.
I just forgot.
Well, then, while you ponder that, we'll move on to the next question. This one comes in from Hallie in Waukee, and she wants to know what the rarest weather phenomenon is. And we had to do a little research on this one. And I don't know if we actually came up with a true answer for this. We have a couple answers, but I don't know if there doesn't seem to be any one good source of this is overwhelmingly agreed upon the rarest phenomenon. It's like, here's some rare things. Right.
And I agree with that. I don't think there is a true correct answer. It just kind of depends on where you are. The one thing that I thought of immediately was it was an optical illusion called a Brocken specter. They're a little more common over in Europe than they are in the United States. But what that is during sunrise or sunset, if there is a hiker on a mountain and it hits them just right, their shadow will be cast along cloud cover. And they look like a giant person. It's like straight out of the X-Files.
It does look creepy. You taught me this one. I did not know of this one.
The Brocken specter, I think, is one of the most rare things.
If you want to look it up, that's Brocken, Brocken, and then the second word is specter, spelled the British way, Spectre. But it does. It looks like it's out of the X-Files.
It does. It does. You need the theme right now, and it would just make it perfect. One of the other things that I thought of, there was a meteorologist who shared this earlier this year, something called a fall streak or a fall streak cloud. It's almost like a bank of cirrus clouds that are typically thin and wispy and pretty uniform up there. And all of a sudden, it looks like somebody took a hole punch to it. And it's just a sudden downdraft.
They're also called hole punch clouds sometimes.
They are. And it's like a sudden downdraft that causes that descent of the ice crystals. And what happens is there's no moisture in those ice crystals. They're going to warm up, melt right away. Not going to be an issue. So it actually looks like a straight hole in the sky. And so that is what's called a fall streak. One word, I think, will get you on that with Google. Maybe 2 words will still work. But if you Google fall streak cloud, you'll probably see exactly what we're talking about. Extremely rare, but they can happen here.
And a lot of times they end up happening like near an airport or something where an airplane has either taken off or landed and gone through that layer of clouds.
Yeah.
And so then you'll kind of see exactly where the planes are either going above or below that cloud layer. You'll see that kind of hole punch cloud. The other one that we had thought of as we were working through this was ball lightning. And again, in my little bit of research for this, even ball lightning is something that we don't really totally understand very well. We don't understand exactly why it happens or, everything that comes together. Obviously there's, a little bit of research into it, but it is still very fictitious in a way. So that would be another one that we would kind of throw into that category. But
yeah, that's exceedingly rare. And that's one of the toughest parts in lightning research is trying to, when you have something with a sample size we call an N of that small, it's really difficult to try and tell how to replicate it. But I've heard of people seeing it, and it's almost like it's a leftover piece of the charge that didn't quite discharge. That's about the best I can answer that. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
I've personally never seen it.
Same.
I know somebody who might know a little more about it, but even she may not be able to answer it as well as we'd like. That's just an idea. I mean, we don't know everything about the weather. Even doctorate meteorologists don't know everything about the weather. There's still much to explore. And so ball lightning is bizarre. Definitely.
Absolutely.
I've heard of it going like in and out of windows and weird things.
Oh, wow.
But you still don't want to touch it. I can tell you that. Then it becomes a problem.
Still
all right.
lightning, still dangerous.
You're 25 and a half minutes in on season 5, Jan's what we're going to call it. So this is the second meteorological summer that we have had weathered questions. So again, we thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here for the second year of weathered questions. And just if you're going on a road trip and you need something to listen to, we have quite the episode bank now. You can download all of them and you can put them on a playlist. They're all free. And I think you're going to learn something along the way. And as you're sitting there listening to us, if you have a question, drop us a quick email. weatheredquestions@gmail.com is the place to do that. We're happy to answer anything that's on your radar. Until next time, stay safe.